I'm Neal Romanek. I'm editorial director of The Flint. We are a new publication focusing exclusively on sustainability in the media industry across all verticals and across all parts of the workflow. You can see us at theflint.media, which is a really irritating suffix, but theflint.media, check that out. And we have such a deep, expansive conversation on training about to happen that I have been forced off the stage. There's so much to talk about in training that we've and we have like some serious experts here to answer your questions. So be sure to take advantage of this and come up with questions that you might want to ask during the conversation. Think about what you might want to ask everybody. I'm going to start by asking everyone to introduce themselves, and then we'll jump right into it. Stuart, do you want to start?
Hi everyone, so my name's Stuart Guinea. I work for BBC Studioworks and I manage Kelvin Hall Studio.
I'm Amy Shaw. I'm co-manager of Bectu Vision. We provide training for crew from new entrants all the way up to producers, and we also run a variety of workforce development initiatives as well.
Afternoon everyone, my name's Ben Grant and I am the Head of Strategy and Future Development for Esports Scotland. We're Scotland's largest competitive electronic sport events company, and since 2022 we've also administered Team Scotland for the Commonwealth Esports Championships, sitting as effectively the de facto national sports governing body for esports.
Hi, I'm Alison Goring, the head of NFTS Scotland, which is the Scottish hub of the National Film and Television School based in Beaconsfield. We deliver a range of training, short courses, part-time certificates and diplomas across all grades and all roles, behind this, everything in front of the camera basically, including producing, directing, writing and all the crafts and technical skills.
I'm Stephen Little. I'm Head of Production for Screen Scotland, which is the national screen agency. So we support film, high-end TV, both scripted and unscripted productions. We fund them, but we also support training initiatives and education initiatives as well. So we like to see ourselves as the first stop for productions coming to Scotland.
Great, thank you so much. I just feel like I'm on like a game show here. It's very awkward. Anyway, but it's not about me though. So I hear over and over there's a skills gap. And there's a skills gap in, I guess, across the UK. We're going to talk specifically about Scotland here. But can maybe we set the scene by talking about what does that mean, skills gap? And what also practically does it mean in terms of the industry and kind of what the industry needs?
Yep.
Does anybody want to jump off with that? Amy, do you want to kick off?
Yeah. I think when we talked about skills gaps, we're talking about a whole industry, and so there's a whole wide range of roles, there's a whole wide range of departments, so we have gaps across the board. There's not specific departments that maybe have more gaps than others. It's kind of about creating opportunities for everybody in all departments to be able to come into the industry, but also looking at how we can upskill people as well who are already in, look at their CPD and look at how we can help them move from assistant to supervisor or supervisor to head of department. And I think that's one of the challenges that we face, in that we kind of have this industry that kind of is quite in flux, and we can have times when we're really quiet, and then when we're really busy, a lot of people then have the opportunity to kind of step up really quickly in their roles, but they don't necessarily always have the training to allow them to do that in the most effective way. So I think when we talk about skills gaps, we can talk about all the different roles that kind of people come into as new entrants, but we also look at the skills gaps in the mid-level crew as well, and how we can help support them. I think that's one of the main challenges that we face in the film and TV industry.
Anybody else want to take a stab at that as well? Skills gap.
I think just following on from what Amy says, I think one of the challenges is, and it is to do with when it's very busy and then it's very quiet, but when it's very busy, there aren't enough skilled people to go around. So quite often what happens is that people get moved up, they get stepped up within a department, possibly sooner than they're ready for, and because of the pressures on productions, whether it's scripted or unscripted, they're just kind of left to sink or swim, and even if they're sinking, they're still looked at as if they're swimming. So I think that's the real issue, is that there isn't time and space for people to learn what's ahead of them, and I think you'd agree with that, and I think that's a real challenge.
And then so are we finding then that the industry has work that needs to be done, and they're not the people available to properly do the work? Is that kind of what the bottom line is? Or Stuart, you're working practically on working in a facility, making content. What is your take on that?
I think from our point of view, so I manage a TV studio, and it's right in saying that when multi-camera TV studios are busy, that there is a lack of skill out there. But when TV studios are quiet, what do those people then do? So one of the things we've been looking at is how you can ensure that people have got the right skills to make sure that they're busy the year round, and they're not just specialists in TV studios. So, we're looking at how people can have skills to work in outside broadcast, for example. So how they can work across sport, how they can work across live events, as well as multi-camera TV. Scotland is busy. The TV and film industry. Okay, it's maybe not been as busy this year, but historically it's been really busy. But it's also cyclical as well. So you'll have times where multi-camera TV is really busy, and there's not a lot happening in sport. For example, over the summer when the football season stops. So it's about ensuring that people have got the right skills as well to make sure they're busy throughout the year.
So there are different. There are different things going on. So it's like sports, as you're saying. There's esports, which we can talk about. There's live events. So people need to be in a position where they can be able to jump from one to the other, I guess, quickly.
It's interesting. So NFTS Scotland with Screen Scotland and BBC Studioworks and QTV run the Scottish Broadcast Training Programme, which is a new initiative. This is the first year we're doing it. And we have 6 students who are learning skills across multi-camera, outside broadcast, live events. So actually doing exactly what Stuart's talking about. And one of the things I'm interested in, because I come from a scripted background myself, is just seeing how these technical roles in those genres, people are expected to know more than just one thing. They're not specialised in quite the same way that you might be on a single camera drama, for example. So I'm hoping that actually over the course of the year, the work experience that these guys are going to get will enable them to go out and be able to be employed in whatever is available. Sport happens pretty much all year round in Scotland. Studio shows are in and out all the time, so hopefully it'll just mean that they're more flexible and more employable.
And then do you want to talk a bit about esports as well, and kind of what is that, because it's broadcast is a big component to that, but there are sort of a variety of other things around gaming and esports in terms of jobs and work that may be separate from some of the other things we're talking about.
Absolutely. So to add a bit of context, before I joined Esports Scotland, I headed up an esports research project for the British Army in Scotland. And that came about because we knew that esports was emerging. 91% of UK free 15-year-olds are now playing some sort of video game online. A ridiculous amount want to go into creative themed roles surrounding YouTube and content creation. So we knew that esports was coming up, but we didn't quite understand what skills were gained there. As I started to look into esports, starting to emerge as a formalised course of education with accredited UCAS points, between about 56 to 168. Our friends at the University of West of Scotland will be able to tell us more about that than me. But what you're getting from these highly engaging formalised esports courses are a Swiss Army knife of skill set, because esports covers digital, cultural, media and sport areas. It covers almost all the STEM areas, from human performance, which you'd traditionally associate with athletics, through to video production, online marketing, media. And while the career opportunities in the video games industry and the esports industry in the UK might not be quite there yet, these courses are producing incredibly well-equipped people that can plug into a wide range of roles within screen, within television, that if people, as I understand, coming on, are on freelance contracts a lot of the time, increasing their personal value proposition to employers to pick up work all year round.
So I guess, that is a question where is is there an overemphasis on broadcast and sort of training people for traditional broadcast? Do you have to even think sort of wider than that, and that I have to be able to, to help my business down the way stream his sale that he's going to be doing, or whatever it is? I mean, what about that gap or that separation between, say, broadcast, traditional broadcast, and streaming or online content? Do you want to?
I suppose I'm not too well read on the screen industry in Scotland. I do feel like somewhat of an imposter up here talking about screen and offering my opinion on esports, but certainly a lot of the smaller production studios, one person's doing the job role of four. If you've got someone that can operate a camera but knows how to get that content online as well and can start to market it, they're only going to increase the value proposition of them as an individual to grow, well, certainly smaller scale screen startups, and you'll be better placed than I to talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, like Screen Scotland, we want to see, more productions being generated from local companies, and that's, one of our core missions. But the other side of it is to make sure we're attracting enough work to kind of flatten out the kind of peaks and troughs that we've spoken about, because we want to attract more people into the industry, but to make it attractive, you've got to have the job opportunities and the training for them as well. So, it's a double-edged sword. Yes, we want more productions from Scotland, but even more importantly, we want productions in Scotland.
So what are there, can you talk maybe about what are some of the things very specific to Scotland that, kind of what we're talking about is, I think is probably a UK-wide thing that we're talking about, but are there sort of does Scotland have very specific issues or opportunities that maybe other parts of the UK don't have?
I think we've got the opportunity to be really well connected. I think that's one of the advantages we have in Scotland, in that the training providers for scripted and unscripted, we form the Screen Training Alliance, which NFTS and Bectu and other organisations are part of, and we're all supported by Screen Scotland. So we've got the opportunity to work together to try and be strategic in what we provide and try to make sure that we don't duplicate and make the money that's available from funding agencies go as far as it possibly can. And I think that's one of our strengths in Scotland, because other areas of the UK don't necessarily have that opportunity to be as connected with each other and be in touch all the time and trying to make strategic decisions together. And I think we're also lucky that we have a close relationship with Screen Scotland as the Screen Training Alliance, because again, that allows that strategic approach to work. We could be on the ground looking at what's happening and feedback to them, and then they can feedback to us about where the priorities are from their side. And I think that's quite unique from a UK perspective, that we have that strength. I think that's one of our real strengths in Scotland.
Yeah, and that connection is important, because we want to have a pipeline so that you can, find your way as a graduate right through to, a head of department, and, be able to track your career and see that there's opportunities to, go beyond the normal limits that were in Scotland. For a long time, Scottish crew would hit a glass ceiling and would have to go to London or further afield, to expand their skill set. But now we're seeing, especially high-end TV and films coming here, and the likes of Outlander was a great opportunity for a lot of crew to learn that next kind of level. But if you want to have a pipeline, then you have to support people at every stage, and we need to make sure we're retaining crew as well. We're not just talking about new entrants. We want to retain our senior crew. I look out into this audience, and there's people that when I was starting out, were in senior positions, and the reason I got better at my job was because I worked with people that were experts, and we want to make sure that these experts are staying in the industry as long as possible, and that the industry is there for them, because for too long we've seen people in the industry just disappear. We don't know where they went. We need an exit strategy for them as well. So that pipeline from the start of your career to the end of your career needs to be connected, and we're all working to make sure that opportunity is there for people.
And I suppose a potential unique benefit to Scotland, or advantage to the rest of the UK, certainly people entering the workforce, is the support to enter training in academia through the student support scheme and the free tuition through college and university. I suppose the challenge there is attracting people into the pipeline from the first place, but certainly the progression through, there's a greater support for the funding model compared to the rest of the UK.
And I'll just add, I think, to what Amy was saying about, particular to Scotland, I think, is the collaborative approach that everyone takes. So if we look at the Scottish Broadcast Trainee Scheme, you've got BBC Studioworks, you've got BBC Studios, you've got QTV. You know, that's three different organisations who are, you know, sharing trainees, if you know what I mean, and making sure that they get that sort of rounded training approach that we were talking about. So I think that's quite particular to Scotland, and that's maybe just because geographically, you know, everything's quite tight between sort of Glasgow and Edinburgh. But I definitely think, you know, across many different areas, I think collaboration is quite high in Scotland.
Yeah.
And you also, when you're doing that, you're kind of bringing people into a pipeline. You also, I guess, have to know where that pipeline goes. So, do you have to have a sense of the future, or what's the vision of the industry you're leading people into?
I mean,
so
looking at new technology, so virtual production, AI, you know, we're investing a lot of money in training there, and that's training aimed at more senior crew as well, because we want to have the best trained crew in the UK, and part of that investment is collaborating with all these different organisations, because we want a competitive pool in Scotland so that you can get the best jobs in Scotland and don't have to leave. And we might have companies competing for the same crew, but at least there'll be local crew, which has got to be is good for all parts of sustainability. But it does require investment, not just from the likes of us, but also from production companies, to know that training's got to be part of the everyday job. You know, no matter what age you are, how long you've been in the industry, you're going to have to train to be at the forefront of technology.
And then what are some of those, I guess probably people are, you know, maybe are doing research on jobs, maybe thinking, what is the job I need to be looking at right now? What should I be training in specifically? Tell me. What are if somebody comes up and asks you that, what is the next thing that I need to be working on? What would you tell them?
You go first, and I'll go second.
I know the answer is no. You should be a jack of all trades and do all kinds of things. But people probably want to know, like, no, should I be doing virtual production, or should I be doing AR? What should I be working on?
I mean, these are new technologies, but the core skills you need before you do them are still the same. You know, you still need the same skill sets as a DOP would need to do traditional filmmaking. They just need an enhanced version of that for virtual production, because you know, crews are smart. They've been embracing technology all their life, and this is just the next stage. What I say to new entrants is, do something you love and you enjoy, because you will invest in yourself. And being a freelancer, you have to invest in yourself, because productions are coming around to the idea that we need to increase the skills base. But at the end of the day, you still have to be a self-motivator, and that investment has to come from you first and foremost. So you may as well pick something you like. There's a job for everybody in this industry. So if you're an accountant working or a lawyer, then there's a job for you here. Equally, if you're a carpenter or an electrician, there's a job for you here as well. So as an industry, we need to be more transparent and be more welcoming, because we always seem to kind of work in secret a little bit and don't want anyone to know what we're up to. But we're trying to throw the doors open and invite people in, and you know, events like this are a good start for that. You know, we've got a great turnout here today.
Because there still is that. I mean, people, you know, it's the word people use is breaking in. You know, that there's always that sense, if you're coming in from the outside, that there's something going on over there. I'd like to be able to do it. I don't know quite how to get in. Yeah. Like me trying to get in the building this morning, and that it's. I don't know that people kind of coming to the industry for the first time now really feel like there's a need for, like, oh yeah, we absolutely need you in here. I think it seems like those entry points are still a little hard to find.
I think there's a much bigger move these days to kind of demystify the roles available in both scripted and unscripted, and also just to kind of tell people about the number of jobs there are. I mean, Stephen says, you know, you can be a cook and become a film caterer. You can be an accountant and there's a job for you and you'll never be out of work. You can, whatever the thing is that you want to do, almost whatever, there will be something that you can do in film and television. And I think that the word is starting to get out there, but there's a lot of education. And also, I think, historically, people have been very nervous about the fact that it's, to a great extent, a freelance industry. I mean, I have to say, people may disagree with me, but I feel that nowadays, in such an uncertain and insecure kind of job market, there is some security. If you're good at what you do, you will get the next job and you will be asked back and you will progress. So I don't think it's nearly as insecure as it was once perceived even just 10 years ago, I think. And just to come back to your kind of what should people be training in, I sort of often feel that when we talk about skills gaps, it's as if there is a gap, and if we plug that, everything will be fine. And I have to say, I kind of feel the thing with training is that it has to be ongoing. That, as Stephen said about the core skills, we are always going to need people in all of the departments and in all of the roles across everything. So to an extent, there just needs to be a continuous, sustainable and dependable kind of training pipeline. And yes, there are moments when something like virtual production will be a thing and we'll really need to focus on that, but that doesn't mean that we still don't need to train vision engineers or whatever. So
because training basically is like, I know something and I'm going to tell you about it. It's people getting together and exchanging information,
enhancing their skills, and
so that maybe it's a question for you, Amy, that and well, for everybody, but that being a freelance, kind of really freelance heavy industry, what impacts does that have on people and how people work, and what do people need to do to kind of prepare themselves for that freelance, kind of living in that freelance world? Because it's very different, there's not as much security in certain things. You're not, you've got to think about your pension.
Yeah, pension's coming up quite soon,
that kind of brings in a whole, you're kind of buying into a whole way of life that you're bringing on in addition to the work.
It is. It's a different way of life, but it's one that it may not be for everybody. Not everybody would want to work freelance. Some people prefer to know what they're earning month on month. They prefer to be able to plan for their future, know when their holidays are going to be. They prefer to work that way. It's not for everybody to work freelance, but the benefits of working freelance can be really fruitful, because you do get an opportunity to, your work day's never the same. You're always working with different crews, you're meeting different people, you're moving in different circles. You can have periods of time, choose to have periods of time off. If you've worked in a really long, intensive job and you've earned some money, you could then choose to take some time off before you have your next job, and that's absolutely fine to do. You're not kind of responsible for only a set amount of holidays per year. You get real opportunities. I think what freelance offers you is opportunities to kind of work in a really special way. And the people who enjoy working that way absolutely thrive in our industry, because they enjoy that idea of not knowing where you're going to be at the end of the year. You start one production and you're on it, and it's a contemporary production filming in Glasgow, and then at the end of the year you're in the Highlands filming something that's a period drama and completely different with a completely different crew. And for people that enjoy that kind of pace and that way of life, then it's a brilliant way of working. And I think what is now on offer is a lot more awareness and support about how to be freelance. There's lots of different courses. We provide some, other training providers provide them, on managing your finances, how to plan effectively, how to understand being PAYE, self-employed, a limited company. All of that information, that training is now available for people to go through. There's courses on pensions and how to plan for your pensions. If you're an employee, you're already signed on to a pension in each production that you go on to. So there's more support there, I think, for people who are working freelance. You do have to embrace it, though. You have to kind of be somebody that enjoys working in that way to enjoy the industry. If you want a kind of a predictable life, it's not for you necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
Just to add to that, but we as an industry have a responsibility to make it more accessible, because of freelance. It doesn't mean that you work people 15, 16 hours a day, because that's not sustainable. And our colleagues at Bectu Vision we've done research into flexible working, for example, so trying to bring modern working techniques into the film and TV industry, so that, as I talked about earlier, this idea of retention, making sure that people can enjoy the benefits of, I suppose, things that would happen in traditional 9-to-5 jobs, but find them in the freelance sector. Now we've got a long way to go, and there's a lot of there's obviously costs associated with that and a change of attitudes. But when we're seeing a competitive workforce and a competitive market, this is the opportunity to make that change. And Screen Scotland's got a big responsibility to promote our crew and say to the US productions and others, use our local crew, use our local facilities, but also we want to make the working environment better. And that's a big challenge when you're competing on a global scale. But I go back to the point that we want Scotland to be the best place to live and work. And working with these guys, flexible working, those different approaches to the workforce is important to embrace as well.
So, does the emphasis on freelancing and flexible working, though, pose challenges in itself at a grassroots level, in that I know certainly academia and Scottish education, a lot of the focus surrounding funding and course support is what they refer to as positive destinations, and that they like to see a golden thread through an undergraduate entering a course, pulling through to a definitive employment opportunity. Does that exist within Scottish screen industry, and does that potentially pose challenges when you're looking to support the funding of courses and training in general?
I mean, that's a valid point, because we talk about, full-time equivalent jobs that are created, and that's why Screen Scotland for the last couple of years has done an economic value report to look at the value of the screen sector. Now, it's pre-COVID, it was under £500 million. It's now, I think, £670 million worth to the sector, and that's with COVID, that's with the strikes. We've still to have what we classify as a normal year, but we're seeing more production coming in. Hopefully, the next couple of years, we can see that those peaks and troughs flatten out a little bit, and we can, as you say, quantify that much easier and show the value of the screen sector, not just to, film and TV workers, but you're talking about, the tourist industry and others. There's lots of benefits to this sector, so it is a hard thing to measure. We're doing our best to do it, so the Scottish Government, UK Government sees the value of it, but we know it's a good career choice. It creates a lot of sustainable jobs, and there's more work to be done there, but with the more productions coming in, then we can have that thread going from graduates right through, and that's what I was talking about, the pipeline, and there's got to be different entry points, and that's why Screen Scotland 3 years ago, our training budget was £400,000. It's now £2.5 million, and that's in reality worth about nearly 4.5–5 million, because everything we do is match funded with industry, and that buy-in from industry, whether it's BBC Studios or Studioworks, or whether it's a streamer or a studio, you have to get the industry to come on the journey with you, and that's how we'll get that route from graduate right through to the top of your career. So
what are the obligations of businesses and employers if I'm hiring somebody, because it's a freelance industry? You come and you work for me, and then see you later. I'll call you next time I need you. And of course, in other studios or more permanent locations, you might have kind of full-time staff. But what obligations do companies have to their employees to train them, to kind of bring them along? They may not have any obligations legally, but what should they be doing, to help people along?
I think that you're absolutely right. There isn't, particularly with freelance crew, there's no legal obligation. I think what the change that we'd really like to see is productions becoming more flexible about allowing people time to learn, and I know that that's something that Bectu's been working on, and maybe you can speak to more than I can, Amy, but I think as we say, we talk about being a freelancer and things like that, but when you're on a job, you don't get the opportunity to go. Historically, you've not really had the opportunity to be released for training, or training because it's such an intensive environment we work around. There's an intensive period of prep, we're filming really long hours, and then when we wrap, everybody's absolutely exhausted, and they recover, and then they go on to the next production, and we're still in that cycle. There's not a space here for people to learn without giving up their own free time on a Saturday morning or an evening, or that doesn't happen in other industries. In other industries, you're given time off your work, paid, in order to go and train and learn. And we don't have that in our industry, and we need it if we're going to have these crews that are really well-trained crew and are able to step up to the next level of their career. They need the opportunity to learn, and that shouldn't be on them to do it in their own spare time. It just shouldn't. It should be the time of the production, and I think that's the investment that we're talking about. So we've run some courses as a kind of trial to have people released from their roles. We've done it with production and HR skills, and they've been really successful in that the companies, we've spoken to the employers, we've explained why we're doing it, what time they need released for, and they've all been released and allowed to attend, and it's just an incredible result, because previously all those people were doing training on a Saturday morning for like 5 weekends in a row, and it's just not fair on the crew. So I think that's something that we're really working towards, and we're also working towards doing training and prep. So we understand that when we're filming, it's really difficult to release people because we've got tight turnarounds, we've only got locations, we've only got cast for a certain period of time. But in that prep time, there should be time given to our crew, paid time, to upskill themselves in whatever it is that they need to upskill in. That's a key area. It would be easy to have we've got the crew there, they're on a production,
they want to learn, I think it's a real given. So that's something that we're really working towards at the moment, is how to do that. And I think with regards to what the employer's responsibility is, it's a responsibility to invest in their crew, because they may only use them on this production just now. They might only have that focus right now on their production and getting it completed. But we need to invest in these brilliant people who are really skilled in what they do so that they don't burn out. You should be investing in your crew and giving them a bit of time to train, working them shorter hours, flexible working opportunities, so that then when they come onto your production again, when you get your next commission or your next green light, you've got a fresh, well-trained, healthy crew, rather than a crew that's absolutely burnt out, which is what we're dealing with at the moment.
And I'll just add to that, I think, a responsible employer, absolutely has a responsibility to support training. When Studioworks opened the studio in Glasgow, they made a commitment to train and help grow the freelance community in Scotland to help support the studio. So I think all employers have a responsibility to contribute to the training. It might not be their employees. We're talking about freelancers here, and training up freelancers. So I think responsible employers should be held accountable and make sure that they do contribute to training in Scotland and support that.
So if you kind of get that culture, I guess, going of like, well, what are you guys doing? Oh, we're doing this. Oh, we're doing, and so you feel like an idiot if you're not doing it, So at the Flint, we talk about sustainability. That's what we do, sustainability. And sustainability is kind of part of everything we do. Kind of whether you know it or not, you have a sustainability story. I wonder, is there, do people need to be trained or briefed or at least aware of changes coming down the pike that environmental breakdown may be causing? So, and if you're working in Southern California, you better be aware of fires, as well as extreme heat, and it depends kind of what other location you are, you're going to run into different sets of problems. But weather is the most obvious thing, but economics may change. There may be whole sort of sets of things may change over the next 10, 15, 20 years. And so you're coming into an industry we know it's not going to be static. Does that, is there anything that you can talk to people about around training for that, or is it just be flexible?
Yeah, I mean, we have a sustainability manager that leads on trying to bring the industry, even make them more aware of what's going on. I actually think one of the biggest things that would help with all types of sustainability is more time. I mean, if we talk about, how quickly a set is dismantled and where that set goes after it's been used, more often than not ends up in landfill. But if you allow crew more time to dismantle it correctly and recycle it correctly, that would be better. But there's got to be some R&D at the beginning. We're a just-in-time kind of industry where we don't really do a lot of. We've not done things differently for a while, especially in studio infrastructure and studio builds. So we need that time as well to develop better ways of working. How can we reuse equipment and materials better and have a better infrastructure, because it's not going to be a kind of one size fits all. It's going to be about having lots of different organisations who are all collaborating, all working, all training on a regular basis. And there's never going to be a silver bullet to this. This is about pulling on lots of different levers, getting people to think differently, but ultimately more time is what's needed, whether that's at the start of the process or at the end of the process. That would help a lot.
I know we're going to actually have a one-on-one with Stuart after this to talk about sustainability in Scotland and BBC Studioworks. So we'll kind of do a deep dive on that. Questions from you guys? And if you could just say who you are as well, please.
Hi, I'm Frank Patterson. I'm recently left a college. I was a lecturer at college doing camera and editing sound. I'm just going to go back a wee bit to the beginning, because I come to all of these shows and what I find is everybody talks about broadcast, and there's a whole industry. It was mentioned very, very briefly, esports in particular, but there's a massive industry out there for streaming and live and so on and so forth that is not broadcast. And while I appreciate that those skills are the same in many ways, it's almost as if everything that's been set up is purely simply been set up to get people into the broadcast industry. And from the college perspective, we were talking about people coming at grassroots level. You were mentioning grassroots. We're bringing kids through, or where, because I'm not there anymore. We're bringing the kids through from the community at a very young age from school and watching them and seeing who's got the skills. But then, there's some interaction with some of the bodies. But not, to my mind, from what we're talking about here, there's not a good linear development from that. So can anybody suggest what's going to maybe happen in the future to try and make that actually work more smoothly right through from the very grassroots?
Yep.
Well, just to come on your point right away, you're absolutely right. Times are changing. I think in 2025 in the US will be the first time that there's more people watching clips on TikTok than there is watching legacy news such as ABC, CNN. So of course the industry's going to need to change. One of the beauties of esports is that the formalised education is turning out Swiss Army knives of young, really into people who have an appreciation for the wider screen industry and traditional broadcast, but are also looking at their streaming platforms, their social media engagement, their marketing. ITV run the Roundup, I believe, on Snapchat, where you can get all your news in 60 seconds, micro-digitized. So yeah, I do think there is a need for greater emphasis on really a broader range of skills training, but focusing on the next generation. Are we at that tipping point yet? Most likely not. In 10 years' time, as a new generation comes through, we probably will be. So yeah, absolutely.
I think they were first.
Hi, my name is Nigel Honey. I'm from the Ability Academy. There's two questions actually. One is we've been trying for a long time to tap into some training funding from Screen and Creative Scotland, and for the last quite a few years we've been able to get none. However, from Screen Skills, we've been able to run courses for the BBC Natural History Unit, ITV Emmerdale, Coronation Street, Mama Youth, Grierson Trust, all from that pot of money, but unfortunately from a training company that's based in Scotland and provides training both in Scotland and the UK, we've basically been able to get no training. The other question is, when I started, apprenticeships were quite a big thing, and personally for me, going to university doesn't guarantee you working in this industry at all. You could get a degree and it's not even worth a piece of paper. I went to UWS, and I'm not dissing UWS, but they taught Final Cut. No one in the industry uses Final Cut. It's all Avid, Premiere and Blackmagic. So you're basically taking people for 4 years of their lives saying, we're going to train you on this software, which is cheap, and then we're going to put you out and you're going to be basically stuck right at the bottom again. That's my two questions. Thank you.
Does anyone want to take that? Screen Scotland, and how do I get my money?
I think Nigel, you've got an inquiry in with us just now, and we're looking at it. We have to, we work with a broad range of partners in a number of areas, and all I can say is, we're investing strategically. I'm happy to talk to you after this about it. Post production. I was talking to colleagues at Blazing Griffin and Sirius about this, and it is an area we need to invest in because it's sometimes forgotten about. Even when you look at the way the UK tax credit's set up, once you hit your 80% limit, a lot of productions will disappear out the UK and go somewhere else for their work, and we need a way of addressing that. And similarly, we've been talking internally about how our funding might work to encourage more post-production to happen. But as we know, it's a kind of chicken egg situation. It's only in the last kind of 5 or 10 years that the post facilities have kind of grown up and are now able to facilitate a lot of the high-end productions and take that work away from Soho. And that's part of this whole retention. We don't want to lose our crew to London or beyond. So yeah, we do need to invest in that area, but I'm happy to chat with you about it because it is something that we are working on.
And then I'm just going to say that other question about film schools, or any training, giving you skills in a certain tool or a certain kind of software, and then of course the industry changes and you go out into the industry and it's a different tool, it's a different software, and that's going to kind of keep happening. Do you have any thoughts about that?
I think, I take Nigel's point. I think for educational institutions, it's slightly different. For I think universities, I think there are various factors at play, and I think that you're absolutely right. You come out, technology changes all the time, and I think it's part of our job is to provide training in those technologies, so that actually, if Premiere Pro is no longer the thing, or Final Cut is no longer the thing, that actually there is training available in other softwares, and I think that's part of the provision that we have to be responsible for as training providers.
I was just going to add, so my colleagues at BBC Scotland, they've been running an apprenticeship scheme for the last 3-4 years maybe, which has been really successful, and that's not particularly targeting postgraduate. That's looking at people with sort of real life skills and giving them an opportunity for an apprenticeship scheme. So there are apprenticeship schemes out there, and I suppose the Scottish Broadcast Training Scheme is a similar scheme. It's a 12-month scheme, and again, it's not only open exclusively to people with degrees.
If I could just jump on the back of that point really as well as quickly, because it struck a chord. Me personally, I'm a non-graduate. I didn't want to put myself through 4 years of university without a guarantee of a job at the end of it. For me, with student debt and things, it just wasn't a smart decision. Esports is great for universities. It's twofold. One, it's a brilliant marketing tool. Because as I said, 91% of UK 3 to 15-year-olds are now playing video games. They love it. As university becomes more accessible in Scotland, there is a greater scramble from the universities to attract the best talent to go there. So one, getting bums on seats, fantastic. Two, equipping people with generalist skills that can quite easily be, with a bit of investment from industry, on 8-week to 6-month courses specialised into film and television. It creates a broader spectrum of opportunities for people at the end of their degree to look at employment options and enhance the value proposition of individuals. And that's one of the reasons I'm so passionate about esports and education. It just ticks so many boxes.
Hello there, my name's Wayne, and I'm someone who wants to get into the film and TV industry for quite a long time now, and I find that I keep on applying for traineeships, but if it's always come down to like a select few who only get through, and I never actually get through. And for me, I've actually worked on a TV series recently as well, and I still find it hard to actually get a traineeship, even applying. I mean, I worked on Amazon TV series The Rig Season 2 just recently as well, and I've applied to the NFTS Amazon Video Craft Academy, and and they just responded today that unfortunately you're not getting the internship, the traineeship. So my question is what more can I do? Because even when I applied to that, I had a recommendation from a VFX supervisor for like an Amazon TV series, and also what can I do if for people who might not be able to get the traineeship, if they apply and then they don't get a traineeship, what are they going to do next?
I think traineeships are really valuable, and it's brilliant that we've got traineeships in Scotland and they're funded in the different ways that they're funded. It provides an access point for people to get the opportunity to join the industry. There are a limited number of traineeships available in the format that they exist in, but we need more crew than what the traineeships allow us to bring through. So I'd say it's very much about, traineeships are brilliant, everyone should apply for them if they've got an interest in a particular department that's advertised, but we still need more crew beyond that one trainee role on that one production. So I'd say it's about building your networks and building your opportunities and finding different areas it's a lot about networking, and I hate the word networking, but a lot about building that network that you can then have to connect with the different people who are working across all the productions in Scotland and potential employers for future ones. We do a lot of work at Bectu. It's called Bectu Base is our contact point for new entrants and people trying to get into the industry. It's a consistent point of contact. It offers monthly one-to-ones, CV advice sessions, peer-to-peer networking, industry networking, socials, and also training courses about managing your finances, walkie-talkie classes, lots of different things to try and support people who are at the same stage as you, where they're trying to break into the industry and build that network, trying to kind of create that opportunity that's there all year round, and it's open to anybody who wants to come along to any of those sessions. But other organisations do similar things like open evenings, networking events. There's a whole breadth of things that are there to try and break down these barriers for people trying to get in and support them in the first challenging couple of years, because it is difficult, that freelance way of working where you get one job and then you don't get the next one straight away. We are in a particularly difficult time at the moment because of the nature of the strikes coming off the back of COVID. There's a whole lot of different challenges that we face in these particular months. We're hoping that the year ahead will be much more fruitful for us and there'll be much more opportunities. But I would just encourage people not to rely solely on the traineeships. They are a great opportunity, but we do need more crew than they provide. So building your own networks, connecting with all the training organisations, coming along to sessions, meeting as many people as you possibly can in person to build your network. And I know that can be struggling, and it can also be intimidating for people to do that. And again, we have courses and others do around networking, sustainable resilience, building your confidence, building your skills in all of those areas as well. And we provide an environment to do that in that's safe before you then go out and do it with industry.
Yeah, the other thing I'd add to that as well, and I don't know your level of experience, but I always encourage people who are trying to break into industry or similar situation to yourself where they've had some experience but are looking for that next job. Be prepared to do other work in and around industry and talk to everybody about what you want to do, because I did that myself when I started out. I always wanted to move into unscripted, but worked in lots of dramas and would tell everybody I wanted to work in unscripted. It's not the best career advice, granted, but it's being in amongst it is important, because you just do not know where that connection will lead. And you know, I can scan this room and see people that helped me through my career as well, but it's just being in amongst it, because you're not going to create your network sitting at home. And it's, if you can just get almost any job and learn that side of it, it will benefit you in the future, because you'll have an understanding of how productions work, and you can take that into your VFX experience later on.
And people...
Just to add to that, I think as well, it is about, if you get the opportunity of doing any work, like you were saying, you were on the rig, and actually you obviously got a good recommendation from somebody you worked with, build on that. Those relationships, that any interaction you have with anybody on a film set is important, and how they get to know you and what they think of you is really helpful in terms of them thinking, actually, that guy was fantastic, let's have him back. So I think just as an ongoing thing, that every day is actually full of opportunities if you have the chance to be in amongst it. And it may be that the guy who wrote your recommendation, you need to keep in touch with him and build out from that.
Yeah, it is a industry of relationships. So it's
yeah. I think so.
And remember, always send a thank you note. This is the most important thing. If you take nothing away today, always send a thank you note. Okay, that is all the time we have, I'm afraid, but you can continue to talk to our guests over here. Thank you so much, guys. If you would join me in giving them a round of applause.